I'm the great-grandniece of the former governor of California, Henry T. Gage, and I'm the great-granddaughter of Marie Merced, who owned, she was my grandmother's mother, who owned Cucamonga, and her sister owned Chino. And this side of my family, several generations born in California, goes all the way back through the Alvarados, the Picos, the Rimpos, all these streets that were named after my grandmother's cousins. On this side, all the way back to a very famous old Spanish family called the Lugos. I'm sure you've heard of the Lugo house. They brought the first horses to this country, and they also, I think, were one of the first families that were granted a grant from the King of Spain. When did I meet Charlie? I was 6 years old. The proprietor of a little tea shop on Hollywood Boulevard had taken me by the hand to meet the famous Charlie, who was seated at a table with a friend of his. He had the tramp outfit on and pink grease paint, which they used in those years. And I was a little startled because my grandmother had taken me often to the Westlake Theater to see The Perils of Pauline and Ruth Rowland series and the Chaplin early films. And I couldn't quite figure out how this was the same man seated at this table as the man I saw on the screen. It kind of scared me, and I ran back to my mother. The next time was when I was 12 years old. I was playing out in front of our apartment building, and Charlie's assistant director was walking along DeLongpre there, the avenue near the Chaplin studio, and they were talking shop, apparently. And Charlie's assistant said to Charlie, "This is the little girl I've been telling you about." And I went running over to meet them. And Charlie looked at me and he said, "Oh yes, and she's very pretty. Now, would you like to be in a movie?" Well, I said I'd have to ask my mother. So I ran upstairs to our flat, and I brought my mother down, and they talked it over, and from that was a contract with the Chaplin Film Studio, and I was to appear in a picture called The Kid, in which there would be a lot of children. What Charlie did to make me look older in The Kid was he had the costume people dress up, put my hair up. I had high heels and my mother's clothes on, and I looked quite a bit older. So I was given the part of the flirting angel. I was very thrilled. You know, Jackie Coogan was 4 years old and I was 12, not too much of a gap. And we played a lot with Charlie. He went swimming with us in the studio pool. And we had a good time as children. As a director, he was controversial because one theory is that you should get, as a director, you should bring out the best that's in the actor and not have the actor just repeat what you do. And Charlie's method was show the person how to do it and have them do it the way he would do it. So in that respect, he was controversial. So I don't know, that's a matter of opinion. I just took for granted that he was right in doing what he did. After all, he was a world-famous man for his product, so who was I to question it? During the making of The Kid, he closed down shop because he had run out of ideas for how to end the film, and he made two reelers. My mother and I played maids, French maids, in I think it was the Idle Class. Charlie had kind of a family. The people that worked for him had been with him a long time and were with him until he left this country. His cameraman, Raleigh Tothrow, and Henry Bergman, and I think he financed a restaurant for Henry on Hollywood Boulevard, a deli restaurant. And Edna Purviance, I believe, was on salary until she died, his leading lady. When my contract ran out, I went back to school. And when I was 15, Myrna Kennedy, a real friend of mine, who we'd gone to dancing school together, was very proud of me because I'd worked for Charlie Chaplin, and she said I'd like to meet him. So I said, well, let's go to the studio, maybe you'll be there. So I took Myrna, And we walked in and we were lucky. Charlie happened to be in the outside office, right near the street, you know, and usually you wouldn't find him there. But he saw me and he said, "Oh," he said, "you're just in time. I'm testing some girls, preferably a brunette with dark eyes and dark hair like you, for the lead in the Gold Rush. Would you like to be tested?" And I said, "Oh yes, I'd be very thrilled." Of course, Myrna was just speechless. So he made the test and was very pleased with it, and I was hired again. And I now had another year's contract to work in the Gold Rush. Well, the next thing, of course, was the trip to Truckee in the snow, where we were to make all the long shots of the numerous men going up this ice, the snow-covered mountain. Long, it was a long shot. And I was in it, but you couldn't see me because it was a distance long shot. Of course, you know, Charlie took a long time to make a film. And he would take after take after take that would have driven any studio crazy, but he was using his own money, and he was a perfectionist. So we got back to the studio, and we had a little more work to do. And then, of course, the scenes for the cabin slipping off the hill were all done on the set. The house was built, and there were pulleys so that the crew could pull the ropes, and the house would slip a little bit, you know. So that was all done at the studio. And it was a little later than that period when Charlie and I got married. So I was replaced by Georgia Hale, who had my coloring, dark eyes and dark hair, looked a little like me, as a matter of fact, because Charlie, in making a picture taking him 2 years, I would be as big as a house by the time the baby would come. So I had to be replaced.